Guys, welcome back to another episode of Higurashi When They Cry. It's your boy Karagol Gaming, and you know how we do things around here. I think we're gonna have some festival shenanigans on our hands this time around, so let's just go ahead and continue. We checked out the tips last episode before we wrap things up, and this time around, a few days have passed since the incident. The incident being, the card game? Or our meeting with Tomitake-san? What are you talking about? During that time, either Mion was busy or Rika-chan had to help with the festival preparation, so we couldn't get everybody together for club activities. Even though I thought I would never want to participate again after the years it shaved off my life each time, not having it only made my heart grow fonder. I really am not honest with myself. Today, we finally had our club activities again. These weren't the same old club activities. It was called the Watanagashi 5 Demon Firefight, and it was one of the biggest events in the club.
Keiichi, この浴衣、まだ着れるかしら。ちょっと袖を通してみてくれる？
Mom pulled out an old dusty yukata.
いいよ、浴衣なんて。恥ずかしいから普段着で行くよ。
でもお祭りなんだから着て行きなさいな。
レナとかは普段着でいいって言ってたぜ。浴衣なんか着てったらかえって恥さらしだよ。
I put on the same old vest as usual.
祭りにはレナたちと行くからさ。俺のことは放っておいて大丈夫。
そう？じゃあ母さんは父さんが起きたら2人で行くわね。
Dad let out a snore from the sofa.
あの調子じゃ夕べも徹夜かな。
急ぎの原稿をようやく発送したとこなの。ひょっとすると起きないかもね。
Manuscript? I thought he was a painter. It seems my dad writes for art magazines sometimes as well. I've never read it though. I wonder if my dad is a really famous artist. As his son, it's a bit strange for me to say, but I can't imagine he's selling all that well. But he's able to feed a family of 3 and my life isn't exactly full of hardships. So maybe he's actually a master painter and I just never knew it. Or a competent one, or a decent one. It doesn't have to be a master one. No. Uh-oh, it was already time. I didn't want them coming here, so I was planning on leaving a little early and waiting outside.
あらあらレナちゃん。いつもうちのケイイチがお世話になってまして。
あ、おばさま、こちらこそお世話になって。
Why are you blushing from just meeting my mom?
そこで真っ赤になるな。実に気まずい。行くぞレナ。
Since Rena would continue to space out if I left her here, I grabbed her hand and dragged her out.
レナちゃん、ケイイチをよろしくね。
おばさま、ケイイチ君はレナが命に変えましても。
The fuck kind of thing is that to say? Then why don't you do it right now? She waved back even as I was dragging her away.
はい、ケイちゃん。今日はお腹すかしてる？露店で済ますんだからね。
部活が露天勝負と分かってて腹を無駄に膨らますと思ったかよ。
そうでなくっちゃ。
さとことリカちゃんはもう神社に行ってるのか？
うん、リカちゃんはお祭りの実行委員さんだもん。さとこちゃんもきっと一緒だよ。
そっか、今日は目いっぱい騒ぐぞ。
We were already in high spirits with just the 3 of us there. It was way more lively at the Furuta Shrine than the last time I came, far exceeding my expectations. Fuck is that? It's like I didn't even split the banana, but it's like covered in chocolate. Like, good luck eating that joint. Throngs of people were crammed between rows of market stalls lined with colorful paper lanterns. Despite that, it was actually quite enjoyable.
すげえ人だな。Hinamizawaってこんなに人がいたんだ。
渡流しのお祭りはみんな来るよ。多分、Hinamizawaの人の半分くらいは来てるんじゃないかな。
Half the village is here, everybody attends the Watanagashi. Checks out, yup.
それだけじゃないよ。近隣の町の町会や子供会も招待してる。
そうだよな。俺たちの学校 あれしか生徒いないのに、今日は子供の姿が。
お祭りの賑やかさはやっぱり子供の賑やかさだからね。
That's true, I agree.
どうもこんばんは。
These two knew everybody we came across. Of course, I greeted them as well, but I still wasn't familiar with everybody just yet.
あら、この間はお惣菜をありがとうね。うちの子も美味しいって喜んでたわ。
いえいえ、気に入ってもらえて嬉しいです。和正くんにもよろしくお伝えくださいね。
よー、園崎のお嬢ちゃんじゃねえの。今年も屋台担いで来てやったぜ。
おっちゃん太った？今からそんなお腹じゃ果て。
あ、この兄ちゃんは新顔だな。嬢ちゃんの後輩かい？
うちの部員だよ。期待のニューフェイス。侮ると一晩で屋台潰されるよ。
嬢ちゃんのお墨付きかい。そりゃお手柔らかに頼むぜ。
As you could imagine, Mion was chatting away with the old guys running the stalls.
みーちゃんは元気いいからね。おじさんたちにすごく人気あるの。
レナも人気あると思うけどな。可愛いし。
That was, of course, so long as her little condition didn't flare up. But as long as she was blushing quietly, she's pretty cute.
あ、レナが？誰に人気あるのかな？あるのかな？
誰かにだよ。
I evaded giving her a straight answer by roughly tousling her hair. I don't fucking...
露天商は町からわざわざ来てくれるんだよ。やっぱりこういうのがないとお前。
で、それを俺たちは荒らして回るわけか。どんな勝負にせよ、俺は負けないぜ。
そうだね。頑張ろう。ああ、遅いですわ皆様。レディーを待たせるとはケイチさんもなってないでございますわ。
おお、そりゃすまんな。で、その待たせたレディーってのはどこにいるんだ？
ぬわんですって。
Sound like Estelle right there. Alright, Satoko was in top form as well. It seemed like she was all excited about being able to get everybody in the club together for the first time in a while.
わー、リカちゃん、かわいい。
Rena let out an elated sigh. It seemed that the real lady had made her appearance.
こんばんはですよ。ケイイチもこんばんはです。
いいねいいね。今年も決まってるじゃん。
かわいいかわいい。お持ち帰り。
Rika-chan was wearing a Shrine Maiden outfit. Is Rika-chan the Monica of this game? Rena's little outburst was completely
リカ
understandable.
ちゃんの服装は本格派だな。これって本物の巫女さんの服か？
うちのバッチャのお手製。結構本格派でしょ。
リカちゃんはお祭りの最後に大切なお仕事があるからその衣装なの。
I see. Rika-chan was on the executive committee because she performed all the Shrine Maiden rituals for the festival.
お仕事はお祭りの最後のところだけなのです。まだまだゆっくり遊べますですよ。ってことはここで時間を無駄にできないということです。参りましょう。
よっしゃー。
It felt good to wander around the festival with just the five of us. I thought it was to be a leisurely stroll, but look at this hype music. Mion called everyone over to a stand that caught her attention and proposed a rather odd competition.
たこ焼き早食い勝負。各自購入の上。よーいドン。
A standard in vendor stalls, the takoyaki stand. What was especially standard for these kind of events was the fact that they were simply balls of dough, takoyaki in name only.
ケイチ君大丈夫？お水お水。ああ、そんな熱々たこ焼き丸飲みなんて自殺行為でございますわ。
作り置きの冷めたやつを購入するのがコツかな。
実に美味しくないですよ。
The stall next to it was a shaved ice stand. It was still a bit too early in the season for that, but right then, it did not
今度は
matter.
かき氷にしようぜ。完食早食い勝負だ。レディーゴー。
かき氷の早食いなんて無理。体温で少しでも溶かせば。冷たいですの。
甘いね。おじさんはシロップ大盛りで頼んだのさ。混ぜればすぐに溶ける。
Those stooges were too late! The moment they chose to tackle it head on was their downfall!
完食だ。
ケイちゃんが？早すぎる。
まさかケイチくん、後ろの金魚すくいのお水を入れたんじゃ。実に美味しくないですよ。
Next to that one was another old favorite, a cotton candy stand.
次はこちらにしませんこと？もちろん早食いですわ。ねえ、わたあめの早食いなんてどうやるんだろう。
On Satoko's mark, Mion, Satoko, and I all compressed the cotton candy with our bare hands. The time it took to stick the whole thing in our mouths? 3 seconds.
サトコはともかく、ケイちゃんも気づいてたとはね。
俺をいつまでも新入部員扱いしないことだぜ。
He's really going hard, he's in it to win it.
実に美味しくないですよ。
Rika-chan had also crushed it between her hands and stuck it in her mouth.
こんなわたあめの食べ方、きっと日本中でもここだけだよ。
I think only Rena's cotton candy was happy with how it was eaten. But it felt like we'd end up doing stuff like eat noodles through the nose contest or human water pump at the goldfish scoop at the rate things were going.
それでもおじさんは勝つけどね。
悪時期勝負ではミオンさんにはかないませんわね。
ああ、まったく。
何あんたたち、次は焼きそばにブルーハワイかけて食べる勝負にしたいわけ？
Shake, shake. Both Satoko and I shook our heads in unison.
さ、今度はちょっと食べ物から離れたゲームにしないかな。
Rena's proposal was actually a godsend. It was about time we played a different kind of game. It also seemed like neither Rena or Rika-chan were any good at speed eating or gorging themselves.
じゃあレナ、次のゲームをあんたに任せるよ。何でもいい。
Pop these balloons!
じゃあね、レナは審判だよ。このお祭り会場でかいいものを探してくるの。制限時間は1分。上等ですわ。
But then she can't lose if she's the judge.
レナの好みは分かってますもの。
よし、多分あれなら勝てる。
やーい、ダン。あれ、ケイチくんとリカちゃんはなんでスタートしないんだろう。
Mion and Satoko dashed off madly, but Rika-chan and I calmly stayed right where we were. I'm gonna present Rika-chan.
ひょっとしてもう見つけてあるの？かわいいの。もう見つけてありますです。ケイチもですね。
ああ。
なんだろう。楽しみ。
Both Rika-chan and I stood motionless for those few moments before Mion and Satoko returned.
こういう形で直接対決するのは初めてだな。
初めてしますです。
リカちゃん、あれで勝つつもりか？
僕も部員です。勝つためなら快速第3条ですよ。
Rika-chan sneered to the best of her ability. You're on. Both Mion and Satoko came back, each with their own plan of attack stuffed in their arms.
じゃあ順番にね。1番は部長さんのみーちゃんから。
悪いけどいきなり決めさせてもらうよ。おじさんはこれだ。
Where did she get those? They were old diamond-shaped tin signs. What?
カレーに蚊取り線香 昔懐かしのブリキ看板だ。どう？
That's very understated. A little too understated, Mion. I used to see those stuck up on barbed wire fences. They were more nostalgic than cute. Can you explain what part of that is cute? But there were puffs of smoke noisily shooting out of Rena's ears and nose, almost like a steam train. I didn't get it.
次は私が行くでございますわよ。これでございます。
It was the hand-drawn poster from the Ladies Society's roasted corn stall. It was a really bad sketch done by a housewife. An anthropomorphic roasted corn draw without any sort of real plan. Its very existence invited a sense of sorrow to the viewer. What was that? That was the sound of blood jetting out of Rena's nose. It's a damn shame she's wearing white. It seemed to have been rated higher than Mion's. I really did not get it. It feels like your artistic sense is a little avant-garde with about 5 eons.
所詮は量産看板。手書きには勝てませんわ。
I couldn't even begin to follow the way those guys were thinking.
では次は僕が行きますですよ。
次はリカちゃんか。小道具もなしにどんな手を使うやら。
Did you and Satoko both forget? If Rika-chan felt like it, she could simply... After moving back about 10 yards, she began waddling up to Rena. Seeing that, both Mion and Satoko gasped.
しまった。
Too late. Rika-chan tripped over nothing and lay motionless after falling down. Rena hurried over to her.
リカちゃん大丈夫かな？大丈夫かな？
Rika-chan had a lump on her forehead and tears welled up in her eyes. Only her fingers peeked out from her sleeve. This was the vital part. The palms of her hands were covered by her sleeves. She just made a single sound.
み忘れてましたですの。一番身近な手を忘れてましたわ。
Rena's face went completely red, her head bobbing back and forth with excitement. She embraced Rika-chan and began rubbing her cheek against her.
さすがだぜ。どこまで撮ってもちびっこ、みこ、半波だ、みー、完璧だ。ただの苔を萌えにまで昇華した。これぞまさに芸術と呼ぶにふさわしい。
ケイちゃんの方がわかんねえセンスしてるよ。
I'll pretend the sharp sting of those words cutting through me like a razor was a figment of my imagination. Rika-chan turned her gaze to me with a daunting smile as she was caressed by Rena, who was in full cute mode.
さあケイイチ、僕に勝てますですか？
That cold smile is frightening, Rika-chan. It must just be my imagination, but I see a demon inside her sometimes.
ケイちゃんにも何か秘策があってのことだろうけど、何を見せてくれるのかな。
私としましてもケイイチさんのお手並み拝見でございますわ。ひょっとしてケイイチも芸をしますですね。
I basked in the pointed stares. I pulled Rena, who gave no sign of canceling out the cute mode, away from Rika-chan.
かいいのかいいの。ケイイチくん離して。
今から俺がもっとかわいいのを見せてやるから少し我慢しろ。
もっとかいいの？
だがここはちょっとギャラリーが多い。あっちの影へ行こう。
Rena looked very surprised as I pulled her behind the shrine.
ケイイチさんの企みが見えないでございますわ。
ケイちゃんに限って、いやまさか。
ファイト王です。
After a bit, I returned. And a bit after that, so did Rena, dragging her feet.
まさかケイちゃんのやつ、ねんねのレナに変なことしたんじゃ。
Innocent my ass. Mion and Satoko passed by me, heading straight to Rena.
ことって一体何でございますの？
For a moment, Rena was too dazed to realize someone was talking to her.
なんだ、みーちゃんか。
大丈夫？ケイちゃんに変なことされなかった？
レナ、変なことはされなかったよ。かなりの重傷ですわ。ケイチさんは一体何を見せましたの？とっても可愛かったよ。
かわいい？レナ、あんた何を見せられたの？
These nuts! Rena let out a really long howl. Her eyes sparkled as she spoke.
可愛かったよ。ケイチくんのオットセイ。
It was what? It was what? Furry little seal? What the fuck does that even mean, dude? In the blink of an eye, Mion and Satoko's elbows smashed into my face!
何
レナに汚ねえもん見せやがって！
Any means necessary, bitches!
この大関つけこましい。重複して差し上げますでございます。
違う誤解だー。
A dark billowing aura flowed from Mion and Satoko. It was no good. They're gonna kill me, dude.
みーちゃん、なんだかわかんないけど誤解だよ。ケイチくんはオットセイさんのキーホルダーですよ。
And we couldn't show it to her here. Why? Rika-chan stuck her hand into my pocket and pulled out my keychain. What kind of fucking gangster is she, patting people's heads and sticking her hand into fucking pockets and shit?
昔、夏休みの宿題で作ったと言ってますです。恥ずかしいので、めったに人に見せないとも言ってますですよ。ちっちゃくて可愛くて、精一杯頑張ったって感じがとっても素敵だったよ。
てっきりおじさんはケイちゃんのあははは
さすがミオさんですわ。間違える方向もワイルドですこと。
They slung insults at each other and it looked like they were ready to tear into each other at any second. I beg of you, if I'm in the clear, would you mind getting off of me? We were interrupted by the flash of a camera.
やあみんな、相変わらず元気そうだね。
It was Tomitake-san. As I lay crumpled on the ground, Mion and Satoko continued to bicker above me. Rika-chan was patting me on the head and Rena was still in cute mode. It was probably quite a lively scene.
こんばんはではございますが、レディーに断りもなくお写真を撮るのはエチケット違反でございますことよ。
そうだな。少なくとも聡子の許可は必要ない。
Satoko dug her heel into me.
こんばんは。明日帰られちゃうんですよね。素敵な写真はいっぱい撮れましたか？
おかげさまでね。いい絵がたくさん撮れたよ。
富武のおじさまに会えるのも今晩限りなのね。お名残惜しいですわ。いい加減とっととメジャーデビューしてくださいよね。
相変わらず口が悪いな。その毒舌もまた半年聞けないかと思うと残念だよ。
せいぜい今夜を楽しんでらしてくださいな。明日の夜にはもう東京なんですからね。
そうだね。星が見える夜空なんてまた半年お預けだもんね。
Tomitake-san looked up at the night sky cheerfully. At that moment, even though he was smiling, I sensed a bit of sadness.
富武さん、いっそ住めばいいじゃないですか。Hinamizawa。
Tomitake-san was speechless.
確かに不便なとこです。店もないし、娯楽もないし、何もないかもしれないけど。
Everyone knew what I was trying to say. Tomitake-san was also well aware. So Rena, Mion, Satoko and Rika-chan, None of them butted in.
俺はまだここに引っ越してきて一月も経たないからよくわからないけど。
Normally, I'm a really talkative guy, but in situations like this, I'm at a loss for words. Even though all this was happening in such a boisterous setting, it felt like all the background noise was fading into distance.
ここにはきっと。
Tomitake-san rested his hand on me gently, silencing me.
ありがとな、ケイイチ君。ミオンちゃんにレナちゃん、サトコちゃんにリカちゃん。
Tomitake-san's smile was so slight it looked like it was going to crumble at any minute, but it was warm.
僕もここに住めたらきっと楽しいだろうなって思うよ。
Those might have been cruel words coming from a kid who didn't need to worry about working to feed himself. A hand touched my back. It was Rena.
ケイチ君、大人をいじめちゃかわいそうだよ。
The background clamor of the festival returned.
またしばらくのお別れなんですからね。今夜は富武さんにもたくさん楽しんでもらわなくっちゃ。
When Rena smiled, the mood instantly got brighter.
そうだね。ぜひそうさせてもらうよ。
あ、ねえねえみーちゃん、どうだろう。富武さんを部活に入部させてあげるのは。
That's a great idea. Or so I thought, but Mion had a snobbish look on her face.
入部条件の一つにHinamizawa在住ってのがあるんだけどね。
そんなみーちゃん、今日くらい意地悪しなくても。
ま、コツコツ毎年来てるからね。名誉し。
やったー。さてさて、こんな旬を過ぎたご老体にこの私の相手が務まるんでございましょうかしら。老快な大人の知恵を見せてもらいましょうです。
へへ、俺たちの若さについてこられるかな。
Tomitake-san stepped back slightly at our audacious grins.
部長、園崎ミオンの名において名誉市民富武氏の我が部への入部を許可する。
Her words were quickly drowned out by our cheers.
なんだいその部活ってのは。
我が部はだな、複雑化する社会に対応するため活動ごとに提案される様々な条件下、時には準教、あるいは逆境からいかにして。
レナは弱いからいじめないでほしいな。仲良くやろうね。子供のごっこ遊びと侮るつもりなら好都合でございますわ。
身ぐるみ剥いで地獄の底に叩き落としてやるぜ。
What?
つまりみんなでゲームして遊ぶ部活です。
Of course, Rika-chan was the only one to give an answer that made sense.
よーし、望むところだよ。その挑戦を受けて立とうじゃないか。お手柔らかに頼むよ、先輩方。
Tomitake-san got riled up and did a victory pose like he was about 10 years younger. That's perfect. We continued walking through the festival with Mion in the front. Now we looked like a family of 6. It had some intensity to it.
ルールはいつも通り。ビリにはもちろんお約束の罰ゲーム。
Tomitake-san was a bit surprised, but to us it was just the same as always. Regardless of how terrible a penalty it was,
負けなきゃいいんだからね。
Rena was also brimming with determination. She didn't have any intention of losing.
そうだな。
I did that shit to Rena's hair again to lighten the mood. She giggled. Scruffled? Ruffled? She giggled to hide her embarrassment.
なるほど。これが同心ってやつなんだな。
Tomitake-san whispered that to nobody in particular. At that moment, we heard an old man call out in a strong voice. Looking over, I realized it was the man Mion had greeted right before the festival.
来たかい、園崎の嬢ちゃん。今年は大人数みたいじゃねえの。
あんたの店、根こそぎかっさらいに来たよ。
His stall was a shooting gallery. It was the usual setup where you had to knock down the prize you wanted with a cork gun.
ルールは簡単。3 発撃って得られた景品のデカさで勝負しよう。
Everybody shouted their agreement. There was no need to consider how to win since the condition for victory was simply size. The biggest prize at the stall, it went without question. It was that one, wasn't it?
クマさん、かわいいよ。
That's not the biggest one. Rena was gazing longingly at a large stuffed animal. It was intentionally placed on an unsteady platform, so it was possible to get if you hit the right spot.
と一瞬思わせる絶妙な配置が見事だな。
さすがケイチさん、一発でカンパすると思いましたわ。
ここは無難にキャラメルや人形を狙うのが定石のようだね。
The intent analysis had already begun. In this club, you will get eaten alive if you don't come prepared. Everything hinges on what plan you can come up with before the main event. At some point, a large crowd had gathered around us making a big fuss. There was this much of a following for our club's infamous event?
クマさんを落とせれば勝利は確定しますですね。
3発しかないんだぜ。それを確かめるために使うには重いな。
へいへい、他のお客さんも待ってるんだぜ。最初のチャレンジャーは誰からだい？
先に挑戦した方が楽な景品を狙えて有利かもしれないけど、鉄砲の癖が見えないうちの挑戦は危険だね。
Tomitake-san's take on the situation was pretty good. He gets what our club is about.
じゃあさ、公平にじゃんけんで決めるのはどうかな？どうかな？
結局それしかないかね。じゃんけん。
After a couple of matches, it ended with Myung being first.
一番は避けたかったんだけど、ま、ハンデってことにしとくかな。おっちゃん、10。
そらよ。
When the shooting range guy handed her a rifle, Myung looked over it intently. She didn't forget to check the cork bullet
オ
either.
ッケー、この銃はおろしたてだね。癖はなし。悪くない。
Myung raised the gun in one swift motion. It was completely different from her careful inspection. She was shooting from the hip. Fire! Reload. Fire! Reload. Fire! Flop. Flop, flop. 3 candy boxes fell, one after another. A big haul. The crowd paused for a moment in awe and then erupted in cheers.
Yeah, やるでございますわ。
Tomitake-san was at a loss for words after seeing such shooting prowess.
すごいよみーちゃん。3つ。
Her accuracy was incredible. Her choice of targets wasn't bad either. The 3 Myung had gone after were fairly large and pretty easy to knock over. They were all targets with very high return on investment.
2番手は誰？さとこ？気をつけて。弾が軽い。
Next was Satoko. The rifle looked a bit big for her lithe body, but it didn't seem like she had any problem with the weight.
やはりここは大物狙いで行かせてもらいますわ。
She proclaimed that she was going after the teddy bear. Damn, Satoko, such a bold move. Let's see if it pays
ク
off.
マさんを落とせばその時点でさとこちゃんのトップは確定するね。さとこちゃん頑張れ。
Satoko was the opposite of Myung. She aimed at the target quite carefully and squeezed the trigger.
弾が軽いですわ。
The first 2 bullets struck the bear in the torso, but it only shifted a bit. You need to aim a bit higher towards the head or it won't work. Satoko's 3rd bullet wasn't aimed at the bear, but at the candy box below its arm.
残念でございますけれど、私にクマは2が勝ちすぎているみたいですわね。
She went boldly after the big catch, but since she switched over to less impressive prey at the last second, the crowd only gave a strained laugh. Were they laughing because she lacked the courage? These fools know nothing.
さとこ、いい仕事をするじゃん。腕を上げたね。
The palm of Mion's outstretched hand went pump as it tapped down lightly on Satoko. She appeared to be just talking hot air, but this was actually completely calculated. Damn that Satoko. Just to avoid being in last place, she dared to switch over to an easy target. Without shame or honor. Magnificent.
熊はレナさんに譲るでございますわ。健闘をお祈りしましたよ。ありがとね、さとこちゃん。熊さんかわいいよ。
Rena was up next. She couldn't hit the broadside of a barn as regular Rena, but she said that bear was cute.
レナちゃんはどうだろうね。一つくらい当たるといいんだけれど。
富武さんはちょっとレナを甘く見てますね。
It's Rena, you know? It's Rena Ryuga, you know? If it was to get that teddy bear... Tomitake-san wheeled around to see what all the commotion the spectators were making was about. If it was to get that bear, she would be able to shoot through a pinhole. The one known as Rena Ryoga could do it. Rena couldn't hide her excitement over the bear's slow rocking. Now Rena could not lose.
さすがレナさんですわ。冷静を失えば失うほどに
強い。
Another big cheer. Rena's bullet hit the bear's forehead again. Not enough. The bear seemed to wobble more than before though.
でも無理かもしれませんですね。
いや、わからないよ。レナちゃんの腕だったらひょっとすると。
While Tomitake-san was just as excited as the crowd, Rika-chan's analysis was not swayed by emotion. If Rena had 10 more shots, then she could surely knock it over. But with just one more, no matter how you looked at it, no go. The crowd let out a dejected groan. She had shot it right in the forehead 3 times. It was a bit late, but they gave her a good round of applause for the attempt.
クマさんお持ち帰り。
She should be praised for her valor, but she had no trophies to show for it. Then at that moment, the old man flicked one of the candy boxes with his finger and handed it to Rena.
こいつはジョーちゃんのだぜ。
くれるの？レナに？
あんなすげえの見せられて手ぶらで返しちゃお天道様に申し訳が立たねえぜ。
There was another shower of applause. Rena turned bright red and I pulled her back over to us by her hand.
頑張ったじゃないかよ。かわいいモードのレナにゃ驚かされるぜ。
惜しかったよ、クマさん。
It was easy to see that it only needed a little bit more to be knocked over. Rena had done quite a lot for me. I still needed to pay her back for that delicious picnic.
よっしゃ、そんなら俺が。
僕が取ったらプレゼントするよ。
Tomitake-san had stolen the words right out of my mouth.
お願いね、富武さん。頑張れ。
Damn you, old man Tomitake! Stealing the good parts for yourself. A small hand stretched over and fell gently on my head just before I was overcome with frustration.
ケイイチもファイト王ですよ。
She keeps saying that. Tomitake-san carefully studied the bear. Setting his sights, he shouldered the rifle while holding the other 2 shots in his hand.
どういうことだ？
富武のおっさんの狙いは
What? The time between shots was short. It was meaningless to shoot again once it stopped shaking. True, he was trying to get that momentum going. So Tomitake-san was relying on rapid fire to win the battle. It was visibly wobbling much more than it had before. But that was all. It still didn't fall over.
残念だった。
All of Rena's momentary expectation from watching it sway violently turned into a dejected sigh.
結構いけると思ったんだけどな。
At this point, you might have to shoot the ball right next to the bear and hope that it pushes the bear down.
男だとキャラメルはもらえないようでございますわね。
That was it. It meant Tomitake-san had no spoils of war.
つまりケイちゃんとリカちゃんは手堅く楽なものを撃ち落とせばビリ回避ってわけだね。
ビリ回避か。あ、すみませんね。
今度はケイイチ君の番だよ。検討。
I was the fifth shooter. I took the rifle from Tomitake-san. If I took the ruthless route as Mion suggested, then I would go for something insignificant. Except, when I picked the rifle up, I definitely got a feeling from it. It was burning passion. Passed down to me by Tomitake-san. The regret of not being man enough to fell the bear that Rena wanted. Yeah, that's right. If I didn't aim for the bear, then I would not be a man.
約束しちまったからな、レナに。
約束ってなんだろう。
あのクマを撃ち落としてレナにプレゼントするって。
それって。
The crowd went wild when they saw our conversation. That's not it, fine men of the crowd. If I didn't do this, then Rena might mug the old man running the stall on his way home. No, that's not it. That's not it at all. Why can't I just express my honest feelings?
ケイイチさんも男を見せますのね。でも実際どうやってクマを落とす気ですの？
Yeah, man, walk the walk.
レナや富武の弾で幾分傾きはしましたですが、難しいと思います。ケイイチ君。
もっと素早い連射力があれば一撃ごとの揺れにパワーを上乗せできるのに。
頑張ってケイイチ君。
After taking 2 deep breaths, I shouted over to the
鉄
guy.
砲もう2丁貸してくれ。
Ooh, he's going for the triple shot. The crowd murmured amongst themselves.
ケイイチさんは何を企んでいるのでしょう。
He's going for more stopping power.
一人じゃ3丁は使えないですのよ。
読めたよ。ケイちゃんも考えたじゃん。
Mion was able to figure it out magnificently.
つまり一番時間がかかってるのがこのコルク玉の装填なんだよ。
Oh,
そうだよね。
so he's gonna load them up but in quick succession shoot them, not shoot them at the same time as I
じゃあ
thought.
先に弾を詰めた鉄砲を3つ並べておけば。
Tomitake-san went silent, peering at me and the bear through his lens. His photographer blood predicted a miracle will occur. And then the crowd finally picked up on what I was planning. They let out a great cheer. They chanted my name, Keiichi. Rapid fire is the key. If I miss, it is all for naught. After letting out a deep breath, I paused. Relax. Now. That moment, it felt like time itself had stopped. I felt like I could see the trajectory of the bullets. Hit it, and knock it down. The first shot hit the bear on its head. The second? The third? The bear swayed hard. And then... The cheers began before the stuffed animal even finished falling off the shelf. The guy caught it before it hit the ground and tossed it over to me.
まさか本当に落としやがるとはな。乾杯だぜ。
すごいや。おめでとうケイイチ君。
ケイイチさんも頭を使えるようになりましたわね。少しは見直しましたですな。
俺一人で落としたわけじゃないぜ。みんなで当てて少しずつずらして落としたんだ。こいつは俺たち全員の戦果だぜ。
そうそう全員の力の結晶だね。
ミーは一発も当ててませんです。
After holding up the teddy bear like it was the championship trophy, I handed it over to Rena.
そうだ、こいつは俺から、いや、みんなからだな。いつもうまい弁当ありがとな。
Rena, thinking she was actually never going to get it, was momentarily speechless.
ダメだよケイチくん。だってこれはみんなの。
じゃあ落としたのは俺だから、これは俺のだからレナにやる。
I pushed the stuffed animal towards her again. This time, she embraced and accepted it.
俺が引っ越してきてからいろいろ面倒を見てくれたよな。すげえ感謝してるんだぜ。ありがとな。
ケイチくん、ありがとう。
Rena dove at me. Mion told me a few days later that Rena kissed me, but I didn't realize it during all the excitement at the time. I remembered what I was trying to say to Tomitake-san earlier. There really isn't much of anything here, but there are lots of things you can't find anywhere else. I gained a lot from coming to Hinamizawa, especially at that moment. The crowd's cheers echoed on and on. From the altar set up in front of the shrine, the drums sounded with a booming echo. It was the finale of the festival.
じゃあ僕はお先に行くですよ。
おっと、僕も早く行っていいポジションを確保しないとな。じゃあみんな、後ほど。
Both Rika-chan and Tomitake-san gave their farewells and disappeared into the crowd.
二人ともお勤めしっかりでございますよ。ささ参りましょうでございます。
うん。リカちゃんの派手姿を見に行きますかね。行こう。
あ、あれ、レナは？何やってんだよ。
ケイチくん、みーちゃん、助けて。
Since she was carrying such a ridiculously large stuffed animal, she was being carried by the flow of the people.
何やってんだ。熊の世話で手一杯なんだな。
じゃあケイちゃんにはレナの世話を頼むかね。私はサトコの世話で忙しいし。
誰がミオンさんの世話になるでございますの？痛い。手引っ張らないでくださいまし。
Before losing sight of Mion, I grabbed the back of Rena's collar.
ケイチくん、そこ違う。掴むとこ違う。
注文のうるさいやつだな。どこならいいんだ？
I didn't feel ashamed at all. Rena was ashamed enough for the both of us. I grabbed onto Rena's hand and dashed after Mion and
置
the
いてかれる。
others.
早く行こうぜ。
I hadn't realized Rena's hand was so delicate. Maybe she needed a bit more exercise and nutrition? That wasn't what I meant, not at all. My ears burned. I tried to keep calm. I repeated the phrase, "Keep it together, Keiichi Maibara," in my mind, but it didn't look like I would be able to anytime soon. I really didn't want Rena to see my face right then and there, so I pushed onwards, dragging her along without looking back even once. There was already a huge group of people gathered in the altar in front of the shrine. The fire at the altar made it bright as midday and just as hot. There was a pile of futons watered with sanctified rope in front of the altar. Come to think of it, they did say it was a festival where they did something with the cotton and futons.
ケイチさん、レナさん、こちらでございますのよ。
Satoko waved her hand from the front row.
すまんすまん。
Making our way through the mass of the people, we reached the spot where they had saved.
どう？ちょっとはレナとドキドキできた？
やっぱりてめえ、そういうつもりだったのか。
Instead of replying, Mion gave us a perverse grin.
レナはどうだった？ケイちゃんの手って意外に大きいとか思わなかった？
The fuck? Rena turned bright red, puffs of steam shooting out of her. I heard something slice through the air and turned around to see Mion on the ground with a welt on her face.
ミオン、お前いつ食らったんだ？
ハとウの間くらいだったか。
レナ、照れ隠しに友達を殴るのは良くないぞ。
レナ、殴ってないよ。知らないもん。
Thump. The thunderous beat of the drum echoed, silencing the crowd.
お静かになさいませ。始まりですわ。
It was a solemn ritual. Rika-chan entered dressed as a shrine maiden, followed by the members of the municipal committee. The elders all looked at Rika-chan and clasped their hands in praise. Is this the Fatal Frame 2 ritual? The only thing allowed to disturb the profound silence was the flash from Tomitake-san's camera.
リカちゃんが持ってるあのでかいのはなんだ？
祭事用のクワだよ。巫女さんしか触っちゃいけない神聖な農具なの。
It was an awkward shape for a piece of farm equipment, not uncommon for something used in rituals. After reciting a Shinto prayer, Rika-chan approached the pile of futons gathered at the altar. She swung the hoe skillfully, plowing it into the futons. Each and every little movement of this performance probably had to be done in a certain way. Without a doubt, this was a ritual.
今度はなんだ？布団叩きかな？
あれはね、人間に代わって冬の病魔を吸い取ってくれたお布団を清めてるの。
ゲイちゃんのお布団叩きって表現もまあ外れじゃないかね。
Rika-chan's face was already dripping with sweat. That hoe was probably really heavy. She staggered side to side with the momentum of each swing. Satoko looked on, silently lending her support.
心配か？
リカは毎日お餅つきの杵で練習してきっとやりきるでございますわ。
Satoko's hands were sweaty, and whenever Rika-chan started to sway a little, she held her breath.
ミオンとかは巫女役立候補しなかったのかよ。リカちゃんにあの重さは気の毒だよ。
そりゃ頼まれりゃやるけどね。まあ誰にでも務まるものでもないし。
そうだよな。巫女は清らかじゃないとダメだもんな。
Mion drove her elbow into my side. With the thud of the big drum, Rika-chan gave a solemn bow and descended from the altar. That triggered a round of generous applause. After the Shinto priest had raised up the cleansed futons like a portable altar, all the spectators stood up. Following the priest, we all marched on at a moderate pace. They descended the shrine's giant stairs in a
今度は
line.
何が始まるんだ？布団を川で洗濯か？
だから綿流しだってば。
The procession continued right up to the bank of the stream. A fire was stoked high and it was bright as day here too. People started crowding around it and clamoring.
はい、順番。並ぶよ、ケイチ君。
I wondered what was up. Maybe we'd get some holy wine? Red and white bean buns?
食べ物じゃないよ。だから綿。
Ah, but of course. They didn't call it the Watanagashi for nothing. I finally understood. The municipal committee members pulled out the cotton from the inside of the futons and bowled it up like mochi, handing it out to people. Rena dove into the line and brought out some for me as well. We then proceeded to the bank of the stream.
ケイチ君は初めてだからレナのやり方を真似するんだよ。
She held up the cotton in her right hand, waving in her hand as if to purify it. She touched it to her forehead, chest, navel, and both thighs.
これを3回繰り返すの。心の中では
お社様ってなんだよ？あの神社の神様の名前か？
うん、Hinamizawaの守り神様なの。ご利益もあるけどたたりもあるんだからね。ちゃんと敬わないとダメだよ。
That sounded like a pretty frightening god. But, well, when in Rome, I was officially a resident of Hinamizawa now after all. Doing as Rena showed me, I touched the cotton all over myself 3 times. Thank you, Oyashiro-sama. Thank you, Oyashiro-sama. Oyashiro-sama.
これでね、体についてた悪いのがこの綿に吸い取られたの。で、あとは沢の流れにそっと流してね。
Together,
おしまい。
Together, Rena and I set our pieces of cotton afloat on the surface of the water. The flowers of cotton blooming in the water had sucked out all the bad illnesses from Hinamizawa and drifted off, disappearing into the distance. It was wonderful, like those floating lantern festivals I had seen on TV. The best part, though, was feeling like this rite of passage had made me a true resident of Hinamizawa.
"はじめはちょっとした不安だった。誰かを傷つけたいなんて考えもしなかった。それでも不安は孤独を生んで疑念へと変わり、やがて黒い殺意が心を闇に閉ざしていった。戻らない日常。少年は足を踏み出す。その先が奈落の底だとも気づかずに。鬼隠し。信じたいと思う気持ちが生んだ悲劇。流した涙は懺悔か、それとも怨恨か。
While staring off into the stream, I somehow got separated from Rena. I wasn't very lonely though. I know this place now. This is where I live, my home. It's probably better if I just stay here instead of wandering around aimlessly. Someone would surely find me while I was enjoying the evening breeze. I heard a familiar voice. It was Tomitake-san's. I headed towards it.
どうですか、富武さん。いい写真はいっぱい撮れましたか？
ああ、おかげさまでね。
Tomitake-san was with a girl. I felt a little like I was intruding.
圭一君はどうだったかしら？
How do you know my name?
お祭りは楽しめた？
From the way she spoke, it seemed like she was a resident of Hinamizawa. I really should try harder to remember the people's faces here. What was her name?
楽しかったです。
My face must have given away how desperately I was trying to remember her name, because she gave a light-hearted chuckle.
圭一君はまだ引っ越してきて日が浅いんだそうだね。他の子たちととても親しげだったから、とてもそうは思えなかったよ。
If that's how it looked, it was all probably thanks to Rena and Mion.
あなたも今日のお祭りに参加して。
どうなんでしょうね。
おや？圭一君らしくない返事だね。
I had tried to get used to Hinamizawa, but there were still plenty of things I didn't know. The faces of the people I'd met, for example. Things that happened in the past as well.
なんだ、その程度のことで君は疎遠に感じていたのかい？
疎遠なんて大げさなもんじゃないですよ。ただなんていうのか。
That incident at the dam construction site. The fighting over it and other conflicts. The terrible incident that they pretended they didn't even know about whenever I brought it up. Even though it was in the past, as someone living in Hinamizawa, it wasn't wrong to want to know about the both good and the bad things that happened here.
それを知ることで君が納得するなら、僕の知っている範囲で何でも教えるよ。
Tomitake-san's smile made me more relieved than I had ever been. It was hard to think about what to ask when someone said ask me anything though. Even when there was so much I wanted to ask.
じゃあ、ダム工事について聞かせてください。ひなみ沢が水没するとかいう大事件だったんですよね。
ダムについては多分ここの人に聞いた方が詳しいと思うけどな。僕が知っている範囲でいいんなら。新聞で読んだ程度だけどね。
Tomitake-san's eyes entered an unfocused gaze as he searched through his memory. Then he spoke.
ダムの計画が決まったのは7、8年くらい前なんだ。黒部に次ぐ巨大な計画だったと聞いてるね。
There were three major issues in Japan at the time. Improving inter-island transportation infrastructure, meeting the higher demand for electricity, and flood control. There was a boom of dam building due to the massive economic stimulus they provided on top of generating electricity and flood control. Hinamizawa had the right conditions to support dam construction, and so it was singled out.
ダムの完成に伴って生まれるダム湖はかなりの面積になったらしい。このひなみ沢からずっと上流の矢郷地あたりまでが全部沈むことになったらしい。
しかしなんだって人が住んでるひなみ沢にもっと他の人が住んでないところに作ればいいのに。
よくは知らないんだが、ダムを作るのに適した地形ってのがあったって聞いてるね。
Of course, there were protests here in Hinamizawa. Rika-chan had said that they had fought. From that choice of words, I had to guess things turned pretty violent. From that choice of words, I had to guess things had turned violent.
裁判にもなったし、議会でも取り上げられたんだ。東京の新聞にも載ったよ。
Mian had told me all about that as well. I'm sure every resident of Hinamizawa had united to fight together. The feeling of solidarity found here, which could not be expressed properly with mere words, was likely brought about by that battle.
で、いろいろな不祥事や汚職が発覚してね、ややこしいことになっているうちに工事中止が決まったんだそうだよ。
If I wanted to know, now was my only chance to ask. It was certainly a bizarre incident that boys my age would be curious about. I felt a little shame from the fact that I was petty enough to have my curiosity piqued by Rena and Mion's refusal to talk about the event. But I figured I might as well ask since I had the chance. Just so I would stop thinking about it so much.
バラバラ殺人ってありましたよね。
あったよ。偶然その時期にひなみ沢にいてね。だからよく覚えてるよ。
Tomitake-san's answer was nonchalant in contrast to my hesitantly forced out question.
ちょうど4年前の今頃だったかな。あれも確か綿流しの日だったね。
Debate on whether to continue construction on the dam was in disarray. Scandal after scandal rocked the project near the end. The incident that was the final nail in the coffin for the dam project. A fight at the dam construction site ended in the victim being murdered. Fearing prosecution, the 6 assailants divided the remains into 6 pieces and each hid one. 5 of the 6 criminals turned themselves in out of guilt, but 1 was still on the run. The right arm he had hidden had yet to be found. Imagine if it's Tomitake-san. The major details lined up with what was in the tabloids I had read earlier. It was certainly a tragic incident, but it wasn't so terrible that Rena and Mion needed to hide it from me. I guess they didn't want someone who had just moved here to have a negative impression of Hinamizawa. I felt grateful for having friends who worried so much about me, as well as shame for still being so interested in it.
当時はダムのトラブルの末期、お社様のたたりだって言ってずいぶん。
お社様のたたりか。
Oyashiro-sama was the name of the god at the shrine that held the festival today, if I recalled correctly. I see. Their guardian deity rained divine punishment down on the evil dam construction for trying to flood Hinamizawa.
若い人たちはそうは思わなかったみたいだけれど、お年寄りたちはお社様のたたりだと疑わなかったみたいね。
The woman with Tomitake-san chuckled mischievously. Tomitake-san began laughing with her. It was so infectious that I ended up laughing myself.
でも今ではどうかしらね。結構いるんじゃないかしら。若い人にも。
いるって。
信じてる人だよ。お社様のたたり。
The woman's lips were still curled into a smile, but her expression turned stern.
その後ね、毎年起こるんだよ。決まって今頃にね。
起こるって何が？
Tomitake-san paused for a second as if to build up some suspense. Then he whispered to me as if someone might be listening.
毎年綿流しの日になるとね、誰かが死ぬんだよ。バラバラ殺人の翌年の綿流しの日。ひなみ沢の住人でありながらダムの誘致派だった男が旅行先で崖下の濁流に転落して死亡した。奥さんに至っては死体も上がってない。
南沢の人間でありながら、事故当時お年寄りたちはお社様のたたりだとささやきあったものよ。
The woman chuckled mischievously again.
さらに翌年、綿流しの晩、今度は神社の神主が原因不明で急死した。奥さんはその晩のうちに沼に受水自殺した。
神社の神主って 今日のこの神社の神主ですか？
The woman nodded.
村人たちはお社様のお怒りを鎮めきれなかったんだって噂したわね。
さらに翌年、これもまた渡流しの番。今度は近所の主婦が撲殺体で発見された。
Housewife. Up until now, all these mysterious deaths were people involved with the dam or had connections with Oyashiro-sama. With that in mind, could the housewife have been involved in some way too?
その通りよ。
The woman stated slyly. Nah, it was more
被
menacingly.
害者の一家はね、その2年前に転落死したダム誘致派の男の弟一家に当たるのよ。
弟本人はまだ生きてるらしいね。でもやはりかなり気にしてね。近隣の町に引っ越してったらしいよ。
For a while, I stood there with my mouth agape. The battle over dam construction with Hinamizawa's future at stake, and the murder at the center of it all. That was all I knew, and that was all I wanted to ask about. But that wasn't all there was to the story. Homicide, body disposal, accidental deaths, terminal illness, suicide, fatal beatings. I'm a pretty level-headed person. I don't really want to believe in curses, but the freakish deaths that happened every year on the day of Watanagashi, and all of them were related to the dam construction? It was easy to dismiss each of them as coincidences by themselves, but when you put them all together, dismissing all of them as coincidence would then defy logic. I don't believe in curses, but every single year on the day of the Watanagashi, somebody or something makes it happen without fail. The woman chuckled again, as if she picked up on what I was thinking. It felt like she was saying, maybe there was, maybe we frightened him, stuff like that. I felt embarrassed at being read so easily. I pressed Tomitake-san to continue, a bit of impatience and irritation in my tone.
で、その翌年の渡流しの番にも今度は誰です？
さーてね。圭一君は誰だと思うかな？
あ
The way he said it didn't agree with me. The sarcastic tone ticked me off.
はぐらかさないでくださいよ。
まあまあ圭一君、落ち着いて。
I realized when she tried to calm me down that I had been panicking.
別にはぐらかしたつもりはないんだよ、圭一君。つまり、その翌年の渡流しってのは、つまり。
That's tonight.
今日よ。
When Tomitake-san hesitated to say it, she finished for him. I broke into a cold sweat. I really didn't like the direction this was headed.
みんな口にしないけど、今夜また何か起こるんじゃないかって思ってる。
But nobody seemed uneasy at all.
こんなにお祭りで賑わってるのに？
あのね、去年の被害者の主婦は不信心者だったらしくてね、渡流しのお祭りに参加しなかったらしいの。
今年の渡流しに参加しないと、お社様の怒りに触れるかもしれないって噂。
Imagine if Dad slept through the festival.
圭一君なら聞いてるんじゃないかい？
I never even heard a whisper of that rumor.
じゃあみんなのお祭りの参加はたたりを恐れて？
そうなんじゃないかと思うね。今年の渡流しは例年になく参加者が多いよ。
やっぱりみんなお社様のたたり。
I could not utter a single word. In this modern age, where we made progress in all the scientific fields, shedding light on the unknown and misunderstood, where black and white television has been eradicated and we've sent men to the moon, even with all of our accomplishments, this can exist in modern society?
桜ってことで近隣の町の子供会をかなり招待したらしいけど、やっぱり一連の事件を受けて人集めに苦労してるって町会の人がぼやいてたもの。
警察もね、過去の事件は全て別個のもので、警備ってことで私服警官をだいぶ立たせてたみたいだよ。
It finally began to dawn on me why Rena and Mion were reluctant to talk. If nothing happened during this Watanagashi, everything would have been over with and I would be none the wiser. If nothing happened, all would be well. In that case, it would all end up being just crazy talk. I should have just pretended like I knew nothing from the beginning. Then they wouldn't have had to act like nothing happened. And we would have gotten back to living life as usual.
やっぱり刺激が強すぎたかしら。
The woman ran her fingers through her hair as she sighed.
いえ、そんな全然。
I had tried to act strong, but that just served as to emphasize how much the information had unsettled me. After seeing how I looked, Tomitake-san appeared to regret saying anything. Letting out a sigh, he then spoke, forcing an awkward, upbeat demeanor.
まさか圭一君、たたりなんて信じてるわけじゃないだろう。
そりゃまあ。
全ての事件が原因不明で犯人も手口も謎って言うなら僕もたたりを疑ってもいいよ。だけど実際には違う。どの事件もちゃんと警察が捜査して真相や犯人を究明してる。
Hearing him say police made me feel a whole lot better. It was perfect for repelling the word curse.
例えば一番最初のバラバラ殺人言ったよね。犯人は一人を残して全員逮捕されてる。残った一人だって時間の問題さ。動機だって酒の上での口論からと判明してる。たたりなんかじゃないだろ。
That was true. If it didn't happen on the day of Watanagashi, then I wouldn't think it was related to the curse at all.
次の誘致派の夫婦の事故死だってそうさ。恨みを買う立場だったからね。警察が特に入念に捜査したと思うよ。それで発表は事故。他殺じゃない。
でもまた綿流しの日に起きたんですよね。
考えてもみなよ圭一君。Hinamizawaに敵が多かった彼が地元のお祭りにおちおち参加できると思うかい。彼にとっては綿流しの時期は特にHinamizawaに居づらい時期に違いない。だからわざわざこの時期に旅行をし意図的にHinamizawaを離れようとしたんじゃないかな。
It wasn't a very clear explanation, but I sort of understood what Tomitake-san was getting at. So I pressed on earnestly, asking more questions so that I could convince myself.
じゃあ富武さん、その次に死んだ神主さんはどうです？原因不明の奇病だって。それもまたしても綿流しの日に。
神主さんはもっと説明がつきやすいよ。綿流しのお祭りは神主さんにとっては年に一度の大行事。あるいはもともと持病持ちだったのかもしれない。
でも奇病ですよ。でもこの医学の進歩した時代に原因不明なんて。
尾ひれだよ。噂が噂を呼んだだけさ。2年立て続けに事件が起これば誰だって過敏になるよ。急死は確かに不自然だったかもしれないけど、こういう死に方をすると必ず警察が検視をする。で、事件性は発見されなかったんだろう。本当に偶然の病死なんだよ。
確か神主の奥さんが自殺してますよね。じゃあこれは？
すでに説明した通りさ。3年目の事件に村人たちは動揺し、信心深い人たちはすぐにたたりだと決めてかかったのさ。もちろん神主の奥さんもね。自殺の際に死んでお社様の怒りを押し詰めするみたいな遺書が見つかったら。
じゃあ次の主婦の事件はまたしても綿流しの日に。
この事件は犯人も逮捕されて解決してるよ。一種の異常者でHinamizawaのたたり騒ぎを面白がって再現したと自供した。
じゃあ次の年の事件は
Tomitake-san gave a hearty laugh.
もう何も起こらん。今度こそね。お社様のたたりなんてもともとない。一連の偶然をあると信じている人たちがそうだと吹聴しているだけさ。
My internal computer finally got itself back on track. I felt a bit embarrassed by how childish I had become after losing control and panicking.
僕は圭一君がHinamizawaをとても好きだと思ってる。仮にお社様のたたりが実在したとしても、 そんな圭一君にたたりがあるなんてとても思えないね。
I felt very relieved. I should probably just forget everything I had heard tonight. I'll greet Rena and Mion tomorrow with the same smile as always. They would also probably like tonight to end without incident so they can continue on tomorrow without having worried me. Perhaps seeing my change in attitude, the woman who had been listening in stretched as she got up from the rock she was sitting on.
そろそろ私は戻らないとね。
おっと、僕も少々長くおしゃべりしすぎたかな。
Yeah, we are way overdue calling this an episode. There were so few people compared to the crowd from before, I could only make out a few groups of families enjoying the cool evening air. I looked at my watch. It seemed like we'd talked for the better part of an hour.
圭一君もお友達と一緒に来たんでしょ。みんなを探したら。
そうだった。みんな俺のことを探してるかもしれない。
女の子に探させるなんてなかなかの罪人。
じゃあね、おやすみなさい、圭一君。
Yeah, you too.
次郎さんもね。また後ほど。
Tomitake-san seems to be quite the scoundrel himself, so his name is Jiro. After dusting off her backside, she disappears into the crowd of people still busy cleaning up the shrine grounds.
ケイチくん、ごめんなさい。
In her place, Rena came running over. I could see all the others behind her. Speak of the devil.
悪い悪いケイちゃん、すっかり話し込んじゃっててさ。
I had completely forgotten about them while caught up in my own conversation, so we were even.
あら、富武さんもご一緒でございましたの。ちょうどよかったですわ。今日の射的の結果発表がありますです。
ああ、そうだったね。結局ビリは僕なのかな。
In the end, after my dramatic victory, Rika-chan was the last challenger, but there weren't many targets left. The ones remaining were all tiny and difficult to hit. She did take her time and aim, but all 3 shots completely missed. She was to end up sharing the loser's crown with Tomitake-san. However, she did her little meeping cry in front of the owner and he turned to mush instantly. She was given a pack of gum as a consolation prize. Her methods were a bit audacious, but she did avoid being the loser rather magnificently.
思うにリカちゃんって結構タヌキだろ。
Same with Satoko.
ケイチの言ってる意味がわかりませんです。
なわけで、ビリは富武さんに決まり。
Everyone cheered and applauded. Tomitake-san smiled wryly, slightly bewildered.
じゃあ富武さん、覚悟はいいかな？罰ゲーム。
え？あ、忘れてた。
You're too naive, Tomitake-san. This is why you got to avoid losing in our club. Mion pulled a felt tip marker from her pocket. Oh, it's that.
ミオン、武士の情けだ。せめて水星にしてやれ。優勢はつらい。
At least.
油性じゃないとダメだよ。お洗濯したら落ちちゃうじゃない。
なんだいお手柔らかに頼むよ。
All of us pinned his arms behind his back and Mion approached him with the marker in one hand.
キュッキュッキュッだ。
But she didn't write on Tomitake-san's face. She wrote on the shirt he was wearing. You would better have your big break this year, Mion. Brenda took up the marker next. Show me your photos next time, okay? It was a little heartwarming and I just had to laugh.
これじゃあ罰ゲームってよりよ。
私は甘くはありませんのよ。ちゃんと罰ゲームでいきますわ。
Haha, dead last, Sataka. Try harder next time, Rika.
ケイチさんもどうぞでございます。
I couldn't decide what to write, but based on what kind of penalty this was probably the most appropriate. Come back and play again. Tomitake-san was silent the entire time. At first, he was quite bewildered, but now he had a different look on his face.
これを着たまま帰郷するのも罰ゲームのうちに入るのかな。
もちろんちゃんと着たまま家に帰ってね。
次に来る時にも着てきてくれるといいな。いいな。
He appeared deeply moved. Embarrassment mixed with a wealth of other emotions made him turn a bright red.
わかった。次に来る時もこれを着てくるよ。約束する。
Everyone cheered and applauded. It was the finest parting gift possible for a buddy heading out tonight. I saw the woman who was with Tomitake-san standing near the festival grounds. It seemed Tomitake-san noticed her too and knew it was time to leave.
お連れ様がお待ちみたいじゃん。そろそろお時間かな。
そうみたいだね。
Tomitake-san headed toward her and seemed to apologize for making her wait. We all shouted stuff at Tomitake-san. Each time we did, he looked back and waved his hand. Eventually, he faded into the darkness of the night, out of sight. It was quite the casual farewell. This wasn't the first time any of us had seen someone off. They had done the same thing many times before.
行っちゃったね。
じゃ、うちらも引き上げるかね。
Rika-chan had to stay behind with the other committee members since they were having a meeting. Satoko was tagging along with her. I headed back home with the usual suspects. The walk back was quite lively with the talk of today's war stories. I think this is where we called an episode. I tried to find a natural cutoff point, but I just couldn't. Everything just seemed to advance in a certain flow. That now that the scene transitioned, now that we don't have a conversation we left off at, let's call it here. Next episode we'll continue this and see, maybe the curse continues. Who knows? Until next time, this has been your boy Karagol Gaming Man. I'm out of here. Love y'all and deuces.